Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Forechecking TV. I'm your host, Doug Glackey. Alongside me is my co-host, Scotty Porterfield. My other co-host, Trevin TK Catalis, is back in the saddle. And tonight we are joined by a special guest, emergency call out of the bullpen for Johnny Sakaguchi. Johnny, how we doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. And thanks for having me back.
Yeah, no problem. I figured this was the perfect time to bring you on because, big bad Brian Boyle is going to occupy an NHL roster spot. He skates like he's in fucking quicksand, but he's out there to bang bodies, be gritty, and no doubt take a penalty kill spot from a player on the roster that is more deserving of one. So, Johnny, what are you thinking?
I mean, I've seen worse preseason games, especially for a first preseason game, than that. I mean, you're talking to the guy that's been watching hockey for the past 20 some years. So, that's not the worst game I've seen yet, but that was still pretty rough. I mean, the fact of the matter is that Brian Boyles is going to be a Pittsburgh Penguin the end of this preseason, and he's out there, as you said, out there to bang bodies and probably block a couple shots here and there, but needs to find in the second gear other than skating with bricks on his feet. But yeah, Brian Boyle's probably gonna be the Penguins' big guy because I don't feel like seeing Ryan Reeves on defense back here again, and I don't want to see some of these other guys that are free agents coming to Pittsburgh. I can deal with Brian Boyles to a point because I know at some point in time Crosby and Malkin will return, along with several other guys. But with the current state of the Penguins, you work with the cards you're dealt. So,
yeah. Also, speaking of Ryan Reeves on defense, did you see that video of Eric Goodbranson getting absolutely torched in a preseason game the other night?
I did not. You're gonna have to send me this one. I completely missed that.
I'll send it to you at some point, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful to witness. And speaking of former big strong men who used to be employed by the Pittsburgh Penguins, shout out to TK. Because all you did for several years, it was talk shit on all of us whenever Jack Johnson was victimizing our hockey watching experience.
Yes.
And now you get to deal with it. And just like I predicted, it's going to be at the expense of Bowen Byram's development.
Yeah.
How are you feeling on this matter, TK?
As most of you know, I'm not statistically as knowledgeable hockey-wise as you guys are, but we all know Jack Johnson's most of the time piece of crap. He did have a decent game, the last one for the preseason, but you know what? That's not one of those things for him that lasts. He'll have a game or two where he can actually look like, oh yeah, this guy can play hockey. And then most of the time you're like, why is this man playing hockey? He's not even worthy of a minor league spot half the time because he's that much of a piece of crap. Bowen Byram is, a future development that he's one of those young guys. Most of these teams nowadays, whether it's hockey, football, whatever it is, you're building around young guys anymore. You don't really stick around a while ago, a couple years back, you kind of stuck around with veterans. You're like, okay, I want a veteran presence on my team. Now, once you get to a certain age or whatever, and you're hitting your little bit of veterancy, you're like, okay, bye. I'm just going to use the young guys. We're going to build off them. We're going to create a better team just because of the young guys we have. And you bring Jack Johnson in, and you're going to pay him decent money when you could have just saved that money, traded for somebody else you needed, and just played Bowen Byram. Bowen Byram would have been fine. Would have been perfect. He's playing up there with Kel McCarr. You got Devon Taves. I don't know. I mean, did he look good in the preseason game? Yes. Will he stay that way? Absolutely not. So overall,
did Bowen Byram set him up for the goal off the face-off? Yes.
Yeah. Overall, I'm not 100% happy about Jack Johnson being here, but I got to deal with it now. So
you got to remember that game is that Jack Johnson had that game playing against guys who might be bagging groceries in a couple weeks.
Exactly. So,
From that, don't look too deep into it because I don't know what the Jack Johnson Norris campaign is going to look like this year, but I'm sure it's not going to be that amazing.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Listen, Jack Johnson's like some of those guys is that everyone gets on their high horse about in the NFL preseason. He's a preseason all-star, nothing more. He does great.
Keep going.
He does great during preseason time, but he does not show up when he needs to, but he shows up when it's pretty much out of hand.
Jack Johnson.
The only reason Jack Johnson even gets paid anymore is because of what he did in Los Angeles and over in Columbus.
Yes. Also,
Jack
whenever
Johnson
you
be a minor league defenseman,
whenever you said about preseason all-stars and great practice players, I didn't know we were talking about noted Hollidaysburg native Sam Lafferty, who was recently demoted to the second team in practice today at training camp. He's down there. Today, the second team fourth line was a rotation of Dominic Simone, or the first team fourth line was a rotation of Drew O'Connor, Brian Boyle, Dominic Simone, and Anthony Angelo, which was rather interesting to see O'Connor and Angelo up there. But, you guys are going to call me crazy, but I think Dom Simone takes that Brandon Tanev spot on that fourth line whenever everybody's healthy.
I can see that.
Same here.
What was the rotation they were going to practice? I saw someone posted the lines. It was like for the first line, just for now, it was like Gensel, Carter, and was it Rust or was it something?
They had Rust up there, and then Heinen was with Rodriguez and Brock McGinn.
Okay, yeah. So should be interesting to see how that all plays. I'm absolutely just shaking my head at the idea of what our lineup's going to look like on October 12th whenever we play against Tampa. It's going to be such a crap.
Yeah, speaking of that, Scotty, I know what Johnny said, well, like, you got to play with the cards you're dealt with the Penguins here. How about the schedule you're dealt to start with? You play Tampa twice in the first half month that you're playing. You faced Florida the second game on the road back-to-back. You got Tampa and Florida. Now, granted, you're in the same state for both those games, but you're playing two high-powered playoff teams from last season. Florida's still going to look good. Tampa's never not going to look good until they lose every one of those players. You're going to play against Marc-Andre Fleury with Chicago on the 16th at home. That's your home opener, for God's sakes. You're going to see Marc-Andre Fleury in those brown old school pads on October 16th. And you got Dallas on the 19th. You're facing Toronto on the 23rd. Like, you're dealt with a hell of a schedule to start off your season here. So, I mean, from all of you guys, whoever wants to answer it, like, take it from the Penguins management perspective. Take it from the coaching staff. How are you preparing to take on all those players when you're out, Crosby and Malkin?
By putting Brian Boyle in our starting line.
Yeah. I mean, TK, injuries are no such thing to the Pittsburgh Penguins. They almost won a 7-game playoff series 10 years ago with Richard Park as their second line center.
Yeah, you just do a whole lot better with the two of them. I mean, you got to work around it.
Go ahead.
Real quick, Johnny, you got to understand something. I already have a fully healthy lineup whenever Malkin comes back in my head that I think will turn them into a Stanley Cup contender. Like, I'm ready to go when it comes to that. Like, I basically want to just kind of find a way to fast forward until Malkin comes back, because that's when things are going to start really popping off. And I mean, they're only going to be without Sid for, I'd say, probably 3 or 4 games at the most.
Not much. Right.
Because, once you get Sid back and you run Carter as your second line center, and the depth gets better in that regard.
Yeah.
It's anything's possible at that point. Like, that's a team that I think Sid could still drag into a playoff contention until Gino's back, and then we just get fully rocking again.
Absolutely.
Have that first line together too, because when you have Sid, Gensel, and Rust all clicking at the same time, I mean, that's the first line that there aren't a lot of teams, if any, that can stop them. They're just too good. The thing that I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it until Gino comes back. A lot of this is going to rest on Jeff Carter. It depends. A lot of this is going to rest on his performance and how he does. Obviously we know how well he did when he came into Pittsburgh, after he was acquired from LA. We're going to need a pretty similar performance, maybe even better than that, if we're going to have any hope of trying to make the playoffs this season, because right now the odds are not in the favor of the Penguins.
Yeah, realistically, they're going to need Carter to score at a 50 or 60 point pace for them to stay like in somewhat respectable territory. Which, you know, I mean,
A tall task.
when you think about you know, him coming in from LA, it looked like that wasn't impossible, but like, you know, we got to keep in mind, like, once he settles back in that third line role, who's he going to be playing with? You know, like I have a lineup kicked around in my head where he's going to play on the third line with Jason Zucker and Kasperi Kapanen.
He was on the second.
McGinn, Malkin, and Russ.
That's right. You still think Sid and Zucker are going to get reunited?
No, I think Danton Heinen's going to play with Sid.
Oh, that's right. Right.
Yeah, I really think Danton Heinen's going to play with Sid. It reminds me of like a morph between Connor Sherry and Dominic Simone. And, you know, that's what Sid likes. I think that it could work out. We all know that Danton Heinen's a really good player defensively, and that would also help keep that line afloat at times. And I think it would give Jake the freedom to start shooting on the perimeter more. You know, I think that that's something we haven't seen since Hornquist's departure. Is Jake's always trying to play net front, which is a big part of the reason why I wanted Zucker there to begin with. So like if Heinen could play like maybe a little bit of a net front presence type deal, let Jake shoot from the perimeter and be a true sniper, I think that we can finally, you know, fully get Gensel going to a point where he's a 40-goal scorer again before that collarbone surgery.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't mind seeing that. Obviously, you know, figuring
Right.
you know, this is a chance for him to definitely kind of step into his own, even in the absence of Sid and Gino. Because I don't mean, obviously, I'd consider Gensel to be a top 50 player in the league, but I don't know if people, you know, maybe he kind of has like the Kunitz thing where people are like, okay, he plays well with Sid, but how would he do on his own? I think this is a good chance for him to like showcase what he can really do, because I believe he's a legitimate player. You know, and in my eyes, I think he's a legitimate hockey player. Like if you put him in on any team, he could be elite. So yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for him to showcase what he can do for the Penguins, and potentially, you know, whatever's coming up on his next contract, you know, maybe just show teams, hey, this is what I can do. So
yeah, and you know, I think it's a lot of the same principle that the Panthers went through whenever Aaron Ekblad went down. Like we all know how good Aaron Ekblad was, but we didn't know how good Mackenzie Weegar could be. We need Jake Gensel to take that type of a next step and come into his own. As I mean, we already know he's an elite talent, but you know, put him in a position where he can carry his own line. I believe he can carry his own line. It's just the fact that he's so good with Sid to the point that there's no reason to really break that up. You know, the only reason I would ever want to break it up would be to get him and Russ back together with Malkin, because, you know, that can be the best line in hockey at times when it's clicking. So, but yeah, go ahead, TK.
I want to throw something out to you guys too. I was looking on the Penguins website a little bit today, just looking around. Obviously, it would be no like for defensively for the Penguins. You know, Dumoulin's been playing with Letang a lot. Wanted to kind of touch on if you guys saw about the part of him, of Dumoulin training like off ice and stuff up in Boston with Marino, all this off season. What are you guys' thoughts on that? You think, I mean, that's going to be a lot more beneficial to Marino come this season?
I did see that, and I love it. And it's the same principle of P.O. Joseph training in Quebec with Chris Letang.
Right.
You know, I think that they're going to try and ride that as well, in terms of these guys could potentially have chemistry with each other because they've been spending so much time with one another. And, you know, if you add POJ into the mix, that makes it interesting, because a lot of people forget this, but Mike Matheson can actually play the right side.
Right.
You know, so like that sets up your pairings to be P.O. Joseph and Chris Letang, Dumoulin and John Marino, and then your third pair would be Marcus Pettersson and Mike Matheson. Now, ultimately, I think they will, if they'll try that to start, but if they were to make any alteration in any way, I think that Brian Dumoulin would go down to a third pairing role with Mike Matheson, and Pettersson would go back to John Marino, because Pettersson and Marino were one of the best shutdown pairings in the league last year. And even though Marcus Pettersson can play with John Marino, can Marcus Pettersson actually fully, like fully throw himself into the Mike Matheson experience?
Right.
That's a very unique guy to play with because there's not a whole lot of people who take the puck up the ice the way he does. I mean, there's not even guys that are high-end offensive talents for defensemen that do that. Like Cale Makar doesn't even do that, do what he does at times, and a lot of it comes down to whether or not Marcus Pettersson will be able to handle that. But, I already know Brian Dumoulin can handle it because he's been playing with Letang for years, and the drop in terms of like risk taking in Letang and Matheson isn't really that far. So, I think that would be interesting. Obviously they're stuck with Mike Matheson and they're stuck with the team that they have due to Jim Rutherford, doing what he did. So like, why not try and maximize it? Why not try and load up that lineup on D, because I'll be honest with you, Mike Matheson playing the right side reminds me a lot of them having Trevor Daley on the right side in the 16, 17 cup runs, and we, as some of us know, the analytical numbers for Trevor Daley were not pretty at all. The dude got literally caved in, but he was able to contribute enough offensively and quarterback the second power play unit to a point where he was able to make a solid contribution to a championship roster. And I think that Mike Matheson would have that opportunity if it were presented to him in this form of a defensive setup.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a good defense all you want, though. But I mean, let's address the goaltending situation, as I know we've done before. But I mean, the Penguins played Jari in that preseason game and still did not look good against, some of the players that, aren't going to play the regular hockey with Columbus too. I mean, yeah, they played a couple guys, but some of the guys are scoring or not. Not guys that are going to be playing every game of the season with Columbus. And you get your starting goaltender not, performing in the first preseason game. And yeah, he's got to get warmed up, but thoughts?
Obviously, I'm not going to ever defend him. You know that. Like,
yeah,
I'm not with that at all. But he only gave up one goal. Philip Lindbergh played the second half of the game. And honestly, the goal he gave up was a really good shot.
It was.
It was Igor Chinnikov, going to be a really big part of Columbus's future. Probably, there's a chance he might make the roster. Because they're giving Cole Sillinger a big run with Patrick Laine right now as the top center. So like, maybe Chinnikov makes the roster and they try and go young a little bit. But honestly, man, I think the more that Andy Chiodo is able to like work with Tristan Jarry and get his game right and get his kinetics right and his positioning right, I think that the results will come back because, we're talking about a guy who made an all-star game, who had an amazing stretch of games in a year where they really needed him to step up because of how mightily Matt Murray struggled at times. I'm not saying that he's a championship winning goalie at all or by any stretch, but I think he can win you a couple playoff rounds. He reminds me a lot of Fleury in like 2008, 2009, where the team just carried him, but he was able to get it done enough to the point where, they got to where they needed to be.
I'll say this about Jari, and I've made my gripes about it and whatnot, but I mean, at the end of the day, this is what the Penguins have decided to do. They've made their bed with this one. They know, hey, this is going to be our guy. Ron Hextall's made that abundantly clear. I think at this point, you just ride out with what you can. The guy's going to be your starting netminder, and unless he completely falls off the cliff, this is what you're going to have to deal with. So, and like you said, though, that's like I always get told this, but whenever I get into a hitting slump during baseball, it's like, hey, you didn't forget how to hit. Just got to go back to, start back to square one or figure out, just look at what you're doing wrong. I think that's all Tristan Jarry needs to do. Tristan, it's easy to – I think some of the mistakes that he's making are quick fixes, whether it's he's playing too deep in the net or he mishandles the pockets. But, those are quick fixes. That's stuff that, you can change like that if you absolutely need to. And like you said, if he works with a goalie coach here and things end up working out again and we end up getting another franchise goalie, quote unquote, great. If it doesn't happen, all right, whatever. At the end of the day, it is what it is. You just have to make the most of what you've been given, I think.
Yeah. And the thing with me is like, we're talking about a Tristan Jarry who, he's played at a high level before. I mean, he won a Memorial Cup when he was in junior. He knows how to do the playoff run thing. He knows how to do that. And, there were times last year where he looked phenomenal. Like that game where in the regular season where he went into Boston and shut Boston down for the first time that they've won in Boston, like 10 years, he looked fantastic in that game. And, I mean, honestly, there was a game in the Islanders series before he completely fell off the rocker where he didn't look bad. The night of the Tanev goal, that Tanev game winner, whatever game that was, he didn't look bad in that game either. I mean, he kept the team in it, but honestly, guys, I think we got to give him a chance because here's the thing. If it doesn't work out again, that's perfectly fine because there's going to be a lot of good goaltenders hitting the market in the summer, and you're likely going to have money to blow because, Malkin's up, Letang's up, Rust is up. You're going to do everything in your power to retain Malkin and Letang and extend Kasperi Kapanen, but, Rust being on this team beyond next year is no guarantee. A lot of these guys being on this roster beyond next year is no guarantee. And, there's a couple goalies out in the league right now that need to change the scenery or are on like contract buyout radar that could easily come in to Pittsburgh and, get coached up by Andy Chiodo. I think he's going to be a fantastic goalie coach. Like I've read some articles about the guy. I think he's a genius. I trust him with my life at this point. I believe that whether it be Tristan Jarry or whichever goaltender it may be, I believe he will do wonders for the goaltending situation in Pittsburgh. And whenever I say buyout watch, guys, I mean, I'm not going to say this because I'm not going to like say this super seriously because I don't want to sound like a Fleury Yinzer, but like if Matt Murray has another disaster year in Ottawa, they're probably going to buy him out. And that's one of those things where, if he were to come back, I guarantee you this goalie coach could get him right and get him back to the elite form that he was in. I blame a lot of what happened to Matt Murray on actual goalie coaching more than anything. Because I find it no coincidence whatsoever that he didn't fully fall off a cliff until the year that he had a full training camp with Mike Buckley. Because in 15-16, they still had Mike Bales. And in 16-17, he wasn't not involved in training camp at all because of the World Cup of Hockey.
He was at camp for like a week. That was it.
Exactly. And he wasn't even a part of the camp because he got hurt at the World Cup of Hockey, remember?
That's right. I do remember that because it was Jarry and
it was Fleury and Jarry.
That's right.
No. It was Fleury and Antti Niemi.
That's right because Niemi came in.
And then Niemi was so bad they put him on waivers and
he bounced around the league to 6 different teams before he finally found a home in Montreal.
Yeah, it was super random. He bounced around like crazy, but it was like horrifically bad goaltending performance to start the year for Antti Niemi. And then that was the year they discovered Casey DeSmith. Remember? Mm-hmm. He just came up and did his thing. But
and he was a solid backup then.
Yeah,
he still is.
He was. TK, I'm going to answer your question live on air. That's the only 7 they have?
The only 7 they have with player names is Giordano, Eberle, Tanev, Wenberg, Gord, Schwartz, and Grubauer. When they first came out with these jerseys, Wenberg and Schwartz were not there. It was Giordano, Eberle, Tanev, Gord, and Grubauer.
Where are these? Where are these at? Where are these at?
NHL.com. Shop NHL. Like just NHL. So NHL
Are you talking about the Kraken jerseys?
Try to find the Kraken Pro Shop and just get a Jared McCann one. You'll thank me later.
Oh yeah, I didn't even. I forgot about McCann on there. To be honest with you,
I don't forget about him at all. I think about it every day.
I don't know.
But,
where's the Kraken Pro Shop? I don't even see a Kraken Pro Shop.
all right, moving forward though.
Anyway, continuing on.
No, so another big thing that happened in the preseason game the other night was the unlikely emergence of Cam Lee. He played really, really good on defense. Looks like somebody who might have a future in the NHL. And that's very interesting to me. Obviously, I went on Hunter Hode's Locked On Penguins podcast the other day, and we were talking about it. That's a very good space for the Penguins to be in with defensive prospects, like just simply because they don't have a whole lot in the pipeline, So if Cam Lee's able to come up and be a contributor at some point in the next year or so, that's big for the organization. If Will Riley ends up being an NHL caliber player, that's good business. P.O. Joseph is already going to make the jump and likely play with Crystal Tang to start the year. And then there's a couple Wilkes-Barre guys that can be bottom six players. Like I think Jordy Bellerive could be a decent third or fourth line guy, And then the biggest one I want to discuss is Nathan Legare. Dude, guys, he looked so fast the other night. And I honestly believe that if he goes down and tears up the AHL, I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility that we see him called up by like mid-February, early March. Because there's going to be injuries. They're going to need guys. And I think they might get themselves into a situation where they'd rather call up a Nathan Legare in a potential playoff race than run around Angelo, Zahorna, Sam Lafferty, any of those random cast of characters, because, they need better options. They're getting there with Poulin and Legare both. One could say they're also getting there with Justin Almeida and Jordy Bellerive. And, I think that I'm just going to come out and say it. I'm sick and tired of seeing Sam Lafferty. Like if I see him on an NHL, like if he comes up on the NHL roster, I'm going to be very irritated, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are there with other players, probably Dominic Simone, but that is what that is. I just think that they have better, younger options down in the AHL, like give Drew O'Connor a legitimate shot, give Radim Zahorna a legitimate shot. Like guys that looked like they could have been something last year, but didn't have the opportunity, didn't have the ability to seize the opportunity because of everything they dealt with COVID. Because like, you got to think of it this way, guys. Drew O'Connor didn't really play in the AHL at all. He went straight from college into the NHL taxi squad. And it's like, no offense to like how they had that set up, but like, what are the players really getting out of that?
That's a big jump.
Yeah. It's a massive jump.
Talk about a day and night difference from like going from playing college hockey to playing against professionals. It's huge. And it's not an easy position for any kid to be in. I understand, people were giving him a hard time. I'm like, dude, like I get it. Like, and I said it too. I was like, listen, this kid has no business being here right now, because you just can't, like I said, you can't pull a kid from college and expect him to just hop in and be that great. That just wasn't going to happen. So I think they'd have been better off just putting him down in Wilkes-Barre at first and let him get his feet wet a little bit before, instead of just throwing him into the fryer. Pretty much that's pretty much what they did with him. So I feel like a little bit more development in the minors would be good for him before they give him a real shot at the big league level, I'd say.
I have to agree with you on that one, Scotty. Yeah, I think that was a major jump for him. You're going from pretty much, I'm going to call it single A hockey to the major league club in a matter of time, and you didn't get to really do much developmental last year. You sat around on twiddling your thumbs, just going to practice and everything. and then someone gets hurt, you get thrown into the lineup. Boom, here we go. Oh, I mean, he didn't look horrible, but he didn't have the greatest game neither. We've been talking about some of the different guys is to look at. Looking at the Penguins' top 10 and prospect list right now, we've pretty much, aside from 2 or 3 names, Cam Lee, number 8, Will Riley, number 10, Luke Solowski, he is number 9, and POJ at number 2, Zahora, number 5, Philip Hollander even, and sitting at number 4, Nathan Legare, and then Sam Pullen's your number is, according to the hockey writers, the Penguins' top prospect at the moment. And we're looking at trying to get, it's a different, I guess you'd say, a spark to the roster. Start calling them up. Do not do what Mike Johnson was doing when he was here, and just bringing these old guys that had made a name for themselves, and that's what they did. They made a name, but they were on the downward spiral and needing to just be anywhere but Pittsburgh, and start calling these guys up. Give them a shot. Let them start doing some things here. Here, for crying out loud, I had a decent in top 10 there already.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to take this turn, but Johnny actually makes a really good point. In the 2015-16, in the winter of the 2015-16 season, the team was really on life support, and it got to a point where we questioned whether or not they had to blow it up or not. And then you had guys like Brian Rust, Connor Sherry, Scott Wilson, Tom Kuhnackel, guys like that all come up and rejuvenate the roster. Brian Dumoulin as well. Like, he was massive. People forget that Brian Dumoulin won that first Stanley Cup on an AHL contract where he's only making like $600,000.
Yep.
Like, massive stuff, and like, I think we're in a similar situation, because like, as much as I like Danton Heinen, as much as I like Brock McGinn, guys like that, they're no sure thing. Like, who knows if they're even going to work here. I mean, remember that time where we thought Nick Spalling was going to be awesome here, and then he just ended up being like a body? Like, that's, we could fall into that territory with some of these guys.
I'd rather not go back there again, please.
Doesn't matter. We still got Kessel for him. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
we ended up with Phil Kessel out of that. So,
but yeah,
I think who was the winner in that one?
I think like it would be nice to get a good run of Wilkes-Barre guys up here just to see what's going on. But the roster's not in horrible shape for the most part. When they're fully healthy, it's just, are they ever going to get fully healthy? And like, when they do get fully healthy, they're going to be a great spot, because their 13th skater is most likely going to be Evan Rodriguez, who can play all 3 forward positions, who can play on all 4 lines, and I think that that's a good spot for them to be in. The big thing that I'm curious about is whenever everybody comes back, what happens to Brian Boyle? Like, what becomes of him? Because exactly, Scotty, I think he'll get sent to the shadow realm, because this isn't your father's regime, in the sense of Jim Rutherford's going to hold on to him for dear life because he's his guy and he's his buddy. Ron Hextall will find a way to ship him out, or just straight up put him on waivers and say, you can go play in Wilkes-Barre, because, I'll be honest with you, I don't really think he's going to contribute much. I mean, yeah, he's not a bad face-off guy, but like, at what cost?
I'll tell you what's going to happen, Dougie. He's going to do what he needs to do here until Crosby and Gino come back and we get the full healthy roster. He's going to get put on waivers, and he's going to go play in Wilkes-Barre, and we won't see him again until June, when all the Black Aces come up, and he just comes up to be a body here.
I wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't hate that at all. I mean, the truth is, I would put him on waivers the day Sid comes back. Like, I'm perfectly fine with Evan Rodriguez being the 4th line center. Like, at that cost, at that rate, I'm perfectly fine with running Radim Zahorna or Evan Rodriguez as the 4th line center. They could probably play better with the guys that they would have on that fourth line and develop chemistry better. And they sure as hell would contribute to the speed and skill game way better than one Brian Boyle. So, anything else you guys have on the Penguins?
Just ready to get the season going at this point. That's pretty much around that, Kind of watching grocery baggers for, for the next week or so. I'm just ready to get the real deal going at this point.
Let's do that, hockey boys.
Yeah, let's get the real thing going. Real quick, just some Toronto Maple Leaf stuff. It looks like Josh Ho-Sang might make that roster.
Yeah, it's looking like it's going to be. He's going to end up making it. I've been following that one closely here.
Yeah, which good for him. I think that their opening night second line is going to be Michael Bunting, John Tavares, and Josh Ho-Sang.
If it's not, I'm going to be saying, "What are you doing?"
I wouldn't go that far because then that means Nylander's still playing with Tavares. But I think, I really think that Tavares is going to take on the Sidney Crosby role of taking on bad wingers and allow the lineup to be deeper or potentially even more top heavy, depending on where you want to put Nylander. I could see us getting the Nylander, Matthews, Marner line going again, but I wouldn't mind. I think their best chance of maximizing their value throughout that entire lineup is Nylander having his own line with Alex Kerfoot. I think that would put them in a great chance to succeed. And we're talking about a team that's probably going to be exponentially better and has way better chances of winning a playoff round because they have Peter Mrazek instead of Freddie Anderson running with Jack Campbell. So that's exciting. That's a big thing for them. And, just another nugget around the league. As we hinted at earlier, Jack Johnson looks like he's going to be a part of the top 6 defensive group for the Colorado Avalanche, which, isn't surprising because no matter where Jack Johnson goes, he ends up being accommodated and given a run for whatever reason. So, yeah, that's crazy. And then what do you guys think about the Kraken? One night they look decent, and then one night they look like they're going to be a lottery team.
They're going to be that kind of team all season long is what I feel like.
I don't think they're going to have a season like the way the Golden Knights did.
No way.
I think they're going to have a decent year, but I don't think they're going to be a playoff contender or team. Granted, you do got some decent pieces there, but you're a team of misfits is how I'm going to put it because teams like Pittsburgh, Montreal, Chicago, all of them learned from what happened last time with the expansion draft. You said, here, take so-and-so, and we'll give you a draft pick, or you take this guy, and we'll give you a prospect. And look what happened. They almost won the whole freaking thing. That didn't happen in the expansion draft this year. I didn't see like a ton of big names getting thrown around but I did see a couple names head to Seattle.
And you also got to keep in mind over the past 4 or 5 years, the GMs got way smarter. The Golden Knights were able to rob some of these guys blind, in a sense. I mean, Alex Tuck got traded there, I think, to protect like Eric Howla. Like crazy stuff, and then Marchessault and Smith falling into their laps because the Panthers organization doesn't believe in analytics. Same thing as, Gerard Gallant falling into their laps because the Panthers organization doesn't believe in analytics. Like there's so much stuff, and even some of the risky guys they took, like James Neal was awesome there for a time, for that year. Same with Perron, because David Perron was there too, right?
Yeah.
They all did. They both did well there, and then they went out into free agency and cashed out. I don't really
and then
think
tanked the next year.
Yeah, They were gone by the next year. I don't think you're going to see a lot of that with Seattle. They took a lot of the young guy route and people to build around. Like you have Mason Appleton, Jared McCann, guys like that. Their entire defense is young, with the exception of Mark Giordano. And the thing that is interesting to me is they're trying to come up with their own version of the Bluger line that looks horrifically bad because they're running Tanev. They're running Riley Shans centering Brandon Tanev and Nathan Bastian. And it's like
it's a dumpster fire. It's hot garbage.
It's a great value Teddy Bluger fourth line.
It's hot garbage. There's no sugarcoating it. It's hot garbage.
Definitely. Is there anything else that you guys want to touch on?
I just last thing I want to say about Seattle is I think that I still think they have a chance to be a playoff team. Granted, I don't think they're going to be finishing atop the division, but we have to keep in mind that the Pacific Division is not going to be strong this year. It's just not. I don't think it's going to be that good. So definitely not sleeping on them to be a playoff team. I think they could definitely at least crack the top 3 maybe. We'll see how that all plays out. But
yeah, I agree with you on that one, Scotty. Yeah, I could probably guarantee you we already know the 3 teams that's going to make it out of that division for the playoffs. Seattle, Vancouver, and I don't know. Probably the Coyotes.
No.
I take that.
No.
Not the Coyotes. They're in rebuild.
Are you talking the full West Division?
No, we're talking about the Pacific.
Pacific, yeah. Isn't Arizona playing in Central now?
Yeah, you're right. They are in the Central now. All since the
whatever division the Sharks are in.
Let me look at the Pacific here.
Sharks are in.
Yeah.
All right. Pacific's Anaheim, Calgary, Edmonton, LA, San Jose, Seattle, Vancouver, Vegas.
Yeah.
Vegas will be the 3rd team.
Vegas is the only lock.
Edmonton will probably be there unless they completely throw up all over themselves. And yeah, I don't think it'll be a slugfest between Seattle and Calgary. Maybe Vancouver. I think it'll be like somewhere with those teams potentially. We'll have to wait and see.
Some team in that division is going to completely destroy their rebuild by falling ass backwards into the 3rd spot in that division.
It could easily be LA, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if LA ends up being the 2. I think that they're going to come out swinging this year.
Listen, and this is the year for Vegas to win that division.
Oh, yeah. Vegas is going to win that division in their sleep, John.
They're the only good team in that division at the moment, as far as I can see. And then probably – let's get some stuff out of my screen here so I can actually see. It's probably going to be Vegas, Edmonton, and a battle between Vancouver and Seattle for that 3rd spot.
Mm-hmm.
And then Central's the 2 locks for me is going to be Colorado and St. Louis. And then take your pick.
I wouldn't stray too far away from saying Arizona has a chance to lock it down.
I just don't see it.
Dude, they're tanking. They're literally tanking for Shane Wright.
I say
they really are.
They're literally tanking.
They're not doing anything this year. Everybody's gone. It's going to be bad there.
Arizona and Buffalo are literally running around with the strategy of hopefully we fall ass backwards into one, if not both, Shane Wright and Connor Bedard.
And Arizona's hoping and praying that when Austin Matthews' contract runs out that he's going to run home back to Arizona.
That's what they hope.
Yep. Yeah.
Because there's no way on God's green earth they're going to be able to keep everybody up there.
No, probably not, especially if they don't win.
You know what? If we're doing predictions right now, talking about the playoff contenders, let's throw it over to the East real quick. Atlantic, you already know who I'm picking as number 1. That's Tampa. Tampa.
Okay.
Your top 3 in that division: Tampa, Boston, and it's a slugfest between Montreal and Toronto. Was it?
I don't know if it's a slugfest with Montreal this year. They're losing guys. You got no
True.
Shea Weber this year. Not that you got no Shea Weber. Price is injured, isn't he? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is he hurt?
He's going to be out at least a little bit.
That's going to hurt him. I don't know if Jake Allen can hold the fort down like he did last year. So, like I said, they're kind of the same boat as Pittsburgh in a sense in that way if you think about it. So I don't know if Montreal is going to be as good. Like that, honestly, Johnny, I said this about Dallas last year, and I'll say it about Montreal. It could be one of those one-year wonders, where they make it to the final because they had a weird playoff format and they just capitalized off of it. And
yeah, this was one of the weirdest. These last two playoffs have been the weirdest of.
Like we're gonna look back on this and see Tampa won their cups and think, oh, that's who they played. It's like that's just what it's gonna come down to.
Yeah,
I think.
And then Metro top 3. I think Washington's probably gonna be the team that wins the division. Where's Nolan at for that one? Then probably, if I had to guess, some combination between in the following 4: Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Carolina.
I'm not gonna sleep on the Rangers this year. I kind of like them low key. I don't know. Maybe I got whenever I got a little bit of persuasion from one of our guests that we had on. His name's completely missing me. Doug, what was his name again? The guy we had on.
Tyler.
What was it again? Tyler.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tyler. That was it. I knew it started with a T. Yeah, he kind of convinced me, and I don't know. Maybe I watched some of their preseason stuff, and I'm like I said, don't want to buy into preseason stuff too early, but that could easily be a team that could potentially sneak in there. I think people tend to overrate Philly a little bit, but if we're being honest, they didn't get worse this offseason. They really didn't. I know that, I'm not a huge fan of bringing in Ristolainen and Yandel, but for the price that you brought him in, that's okay. I honestly believe Cam Atkinson's an improvement over Jake Voracek. I could be wrong saying that, but I think that's a legitimate case there to be made. So,
yeah, I have to agree with you, Scotty. I think for once the Flyers actually got better instead of getting worse.
And with Martin Jones too, with the role that you're putting him in, he could flourish there 100%. I don't see how that couldn't work out. So, yeah, definitely not going to sleep on Philly heading into the season this year. Also, I'm watching the Pirate game right now, and I've never seen Cole Tucker's got his hair tied up, and I just never seen that before, but it looks kind of crazy, actually.
Also, can we talk about the fact that Bryant and Reynolds also hit an inside the park home run today? Oh. While we were on here, it happened to pop up on Twitter, that he hit one into center field off the top of the wall. It bounced back into the play, and he had the afterburners going.
That's perfect. That's awesome. But yeah, Scotty, I agree with your Cam Atkinson point. Simply because I think that's the type of guy that Cam Atkins or that Kevin Hayes would love to play with. In a sense, I think they'd be really good together and have a lot of good chemistry. And, the role that they'll put Keith Yandel in is like you're going to be in a third pairing role. He's going to be the 6th defenseman, probably quarterback the second power play unit. I see no way that he can screw that up, because I think the biggest issue in Florida was he was just playing too big of minutes.
Yeah, you make that case.
So, but the biggest team out of that division that I think is just the only true guarantee is the Hurricanes are going to be monsters. They're going to be nuts. Dude.
I don't know anymore. They regressed. Let's be real, they regressed. I get that they still have some of their guys. I get that they brought in what's his name from Montreal.
Yeah.
That goaltending isn't as good as it used to be. I mean,
true.
Let's be real. That goaltending could both of them could be on the IR by November, just for their track record. Mm-hmm. The replacement for Dougie Hamilton was Tony DeAngelo. So how's that going to work? That's not going to work out. I can't imagine his teammates are thrilled to have him, but I don't know. Maybe this is like Montreal. I hope that Carolina doesn't miss the playoffs. They're an entertaining team, and hopefully they don't. But the same time, man, I don't know. I don't have the confidence in them that I had last year. That's for sure.
Plus, I think the big thing we got to keep in mind is the Islanders always make the playoffs out of that division, regardless of what they look like on paper.
Yeah.
Some way, somehow they do.
This is one of those years where it's like, if Washington or Pittsburgh take their foot off the gas for a little bit, or they struggle with injuries to start out like the Penguins are, one of those two might not make the playoffs.
I think it'll be Pittsburgh. Because Washington's always a good regular season team. They always are, no matter what. No matter what's going on, they're always a good regular season team, unless Dale Hunter or Adam Mose is the coach.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but, Ron Hextall didn't trade that first-round pick for a reason.
Yep. Very, very true.
I mean, like, you know how I am, dude. I'm a ball of optimism when it comes to the Penguins, but, like, I'm not seeing it, And especially with the way the Steelers started out to start the year, I'm in a wait and see holding pattern with everything in life right now after what the Steelers have done to me.
Steelers made me rethink my life.
Hang on, hold on, and because as I ended up saying this on Sunday, the fact of the matter is I was more interested in the Pirate game going on with them playing Philadelphia than I was the freaking Steeler game on Sunday.
Yeah, I'll just real quick with where I'm at. I Googled draft eligible college quarterbacks more times this week than I have in the past, 23 years of my life. So, but anything else that you guys have? No?
Can't wait to see Kenny Pickett in a Steeler uniform.
It's coming. And you know that every Yinzer in the Strip District is going to grab their Tommy Maddox jersey and duct tape Pickett over that fucking nameplate. It's coming.
I do not want him here. Listen, I will deal with that. Wanting to draft a kid from Liberty than I would.
The Liberty kid's actually good.
Which one is he? I don't remember.
What'd you say?
Which one is he? I don't remember.
I don't know who he is either. I like the Ole Miss guy, though, because he looks like Justin Herbert.
Well, screw it. We'll draft them both.
No.
Please draft him.
We all know that the real, let's be real. We're hockey people, but I think we're all smart enough in this room to know that we're probably better off to ride with Mason Rudolph next year and draft a good draft eligible quarterback in 2023 with a top 5 or a top 10 pick.
No, I'm not going to make that joke. I'm not going to go there.
Yeah. Let's just end this let's just stop this while we're ahead.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right, guys, this was another episode of Forechecking TV. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Forechecking TV. Subscribe to us on YouTube and look for us wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you guys and good night.